Sony is the latest company to learn how woke makes broke. And this time with a game we've talked about before, Concord, but with some new, stunning updates. You see, this was a game that came out and then was summarily shut down within 2 weeks of its opening. And beyond that, the unprecedented move by Sony to refund every penny paid by every player who actually bought the game, which wasn't many, some 25,000 that we heard of. About $1 million in revenue for a game that cost now, according to inside sources and rumors, $400 million. This is going to go down in history as one of the worst, if not the worst, failures of the video game industry, and we've got to discuss this one. But here you go, Concord. And I saw this a couple days ago. Somebody was tagging me on this, and then some of our friends out there were putting videos on this. Reportedly cost $400 million to develop, and that doesn't even include, reportedly, what Sony spent to acquire the team at Firewalk Studios.
That's wild.
Who created the game and started working on it nearly 8 years ago. This is going to go down in history as probably one of the biggest boondoggles ever.
Man,
because it's literally made nothing. And the idea is that this game about a year ago, it didn't even meet, according to this source, it didn't even meet the minimum playable standards a year ago. And Sony had to dump a ton of money into it to try to get it to just the condition that it was when it released, which was a disaster, apparently. It's like you go back and you look at some of the comments from the team and you go, "Oh, I think we DEI'd this one again." It's it's like, let's hire people based on a checklist. We need to have so many people that are LGBTQ, so many people that are Asian or black or whatever. And it's like, dude, just hire people that. How do you spend $400 million and 8 years to make a game like this? It was barely looking like a AAA game, maybe not even a AA game. And it was just, nobody wanted it. It went nowhere. But the thought process was there were people at the studio that managed to convince Sony, basically lied to them, saying that this was going to be the future of Sony. This was going to be something potentially as big as a Star Wars franchise.
Yeah.
This was actually the language that was being used, according to the league.
Wild.
Yeah. And it's like, it's just absolutely unfathomable. Sony does not have earnings calls the way we have them here because it's a Japanese-based company. But I cannot wait to see the details down the road for this one. We just got some news in the last few days, 6 months after the full release, and again, a Japanese company, Square Enix, where to that point they still had not turned any profit, like even on they lost money on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm not terribly surprised. They had not, according to them, they hadn't really turned as much of a profit as they'd hoped with Final Fantasy XVI, which was an excellent game, but that game actually just released on PC like this week. It's been out on PlayStation and Xbox for over a year, but it was never on Steam or PC until just this week. So I'm sure that's going to reinvigorate a lot of gaming into it, I'm sure. So that the story's still out on that one. But the point is that, this is just some of the goofy characters they made for it. It's like fat guys with like parka trench coats, and I mean, it's the most
garbage.
This
man.
did not
I couldn't
work.
believe that you showed that. We were looking at that. I think with Endymion was on.
Yeah, a couple
and
weeks
I was
ago.
on with you. We were going through this, and I was just like, I could not believe that this is a game that they made. This is unreal. How bad this game looked.
Endymion even pointed out, Grums even pointed out the fact that they even made a custom PS5 controller to go with this game, like with the grab, like that. They really expected this to be huge.
Again, that goes to the point of not knowing your audience.
No.
Like, who's your audience? Is your audience going to come and buy it? No.
These game studios have been, and especially these Japanese ones, they have been so corrupted because they think, I'm not saying like in Japan, but the problem is that they keep asking, okay, localization teams, how do we make this more appealing to our Western audience? How do we make this more appealing to our American audience? And unfortunately, the charlatans and the con artists that they're hiring to go in there and basically just collect millions and tens of millions and God knows, maybe hundreds of millions of fees collectively over the industry to do
these
all this
quote-unquote
consulting.
consultants.
The consultants,
The Sweet Baby Inks of the world and all these guys.
And they tell them, well, first of all, you've got to have pronouns for all your characters. Then you need one of them to be trans. Now, if you can make a trans black lesbian, then you cross off 3 things at one time. So that's a good idea. I mean, it's all the crazy stuff that we always hear about. And they are convincing companies like Sony that this is the way. I am hoping that this, above everything else, is going to be the watershed moment. That they're going to look at this and go, and even though they may not say it publicly, but people inside of Sony, they need to be honest about it intellectually, at least internally, to say that, look, we think we know what went wrong here. This was a disaster. We bought into this. We made a mistake. We trusted the wrong people. We did not have talented people working on this game. We know that because we were desperate to fix it. Look how much it still failed.
Yep.
It's got to be one of the worst performing games ever. It was nightmare fuel for Sony. And this is basically this is, and if they write off the cost of the team, now maybe we're talking about $500 million. They may just have an impairment charge on their next quarterly earnings call or however they do it in Japan. But they're going to have a giant write-off, maybe of $500 million. Again, I don't know Japanese tax code, but if it's similar to what we have here in the U.S., then
you got to figure,
Well, we lit $500 million on fire with this game. That image is appropriate. Wow. Imagine there were stacks of $500 million in cash sitting in that fire that this Concord character is just torching, because that's what happened. It's spectacular, at least with failures like Rise of Palpatine or Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. At least it made something at the box office.
They got something out of it.
They covered some of their costs. I mean,
that has to be one of the worst.
They literally refunded. Imagine.
So is there a plan to relaunch it? Like, we're going to bring it back, we're going to clean it up, and then we're going to try to relaunch it at some point in time?
Sony is allegedly saying that's what they're claiming, right? But I doubt it. How do you fix this? And if you relaunch it, here's the thing. If you used any piece of this to relaunch it, you cannot call it Concord because it will be a joke.
No. Yeah.
So it's going to be maybe they use some of the technological infrastructure of the game.
Right.
Certainly please don't use any of these characters, y'all. Please do not use fat Mexican guy. Please do not use purple Afro puff, whatever is going on here.
Wow,
again,
man.
It's just weird. It's like, you can have diverse characters, nothing wrong, but it's like, why do they look weird? I know guys do not want to play a morbidly obese fat guy as the shooter hero. We don't want body positivity. And it's just a bad game. It's like I said, the whole $40, like, you're going to compete with Overwatch and Fortnite. You can't charge people $40 entry fees. But I think now we know why. Sony was so desperate. They were so deep in the hole on this thing. They felt like, let's see, we got to charge $39.99, charge $40 to get people in the door. Let's see what happens. If we're lucky, maybe we can get $100 million back out of this in short order, $200 million back, and at least cover the additional investment we had to put in to get to this point. Apparently it was rumors said that they sold, according to this, I think the rumors said that they might have sold, it was like a few thousand copies, like maybe 20,000 copies, which for a game like this, nothing. You're dead. Yeah. You're dead in the water. So it was, Sony looked at it at that point and said, give everybody's money back because
everybody get a refund. Yeah.
There was no way that they could keep this game going. The millions of dollars a month that it probably cost on a major game servers and just to keep this operational because it's online. There's no way. I mean, it was the Galactic Starcruiser, DA. It was the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser. It was like, we spent $500 million on this. This is the Galactic Starcruiser of video games. There's the title for the video. But it's a $500 million capital investment that went nowhere. And they realized very quickly, we have to shut this down completely now. Disney wasn't going to give you your money back. Trust me on that one if you went there. I'm sorry. But we have to shut this down because the cost of continuing to operate this is only going to compound the problem and make this inexorably worse.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's going to be insane. So they shut it down, gave everybody their money back, walked away clean. It's the Galactic Starcruiser of video games. Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.